Itaewon Halloween 2022. The night was set to be one of the most memorable Halloween celebrations. Lockdown restrictions were lifted, and thousands of people were set to celebrate on the streets of Itaewon. But what started out as a celebration quickly turned into one of South Korea's most harrowing crowd disasters in recent history. Here's how it unfolded. Itaewon, located in the heart of Seoul, South Korea, is known for its multicultural atmosphere and lively nightlife. Halloween in Itaewon is an especially popular event, attracting tens of thousands of partygoers each year. In 2022, the excitement was higher than ever. This was the first Halloween celebration without COVID-19 restrictions since the pandemic began. With restrictions lifted, the anticipation was palpable. An estimated 100,000 people were expected to flood the narrow streets of Itaewon, eager to enjoy the festivities. As the evening approached, the streets began to fill with costumed partygoers. By 8 p.m, Itaewon was already packed, the narrow alleys choked with people moving shoulder to shoulder. Among these streets was an especially narrow alleyway, just 4 meters wide, that would soon become the epicenter of a catastrophe. The alleyway, which slopes downwards towards the main road, is a narrow passage near the Hamilton Hotel, serving as a vital connector between the Itaewon subway station and various popular parts of Itaewon. This path is frequently used by partygoers moving between these locations, especially during busy times. Lined with small shops and eateries, its neon signs and lights create a lively atmosphere. However, its confined space, with buildings closely packed on each side, can make it difficult to navigate when it's crowded. As more and more people entered the alley, the crowd density increased to dangerous levels. Despite the growing number of people, there were no crowd control measures in place. No barriers, no clear guidance, just thousands of individuals squeezing through a space designed for far fewer. By 10 p.m, the situation had become critical. The crowd was so dense that movement was nearly impossible. People were trapped, unable to move forward or backward. Panic began to set in as the crowd continued to swell. The downward slope of the alley only added to the danger, as the pressure from the people higher up pushed those below into an inescapable bottleneck. Survivors recall the terrifying moments when they realised something was wrong. One survivor described how it was so packed that they couldn't even raise their arms, feeling the pressure build up until breathing became difficult. Another recounted the wave-like push from behind, forcing people into those in front, creating an overwhelming force. As the pressure grew, people began to fall. Those who tripped had no chance of getting back up. The weight of the crowd pressed down on them, and soon, a human pile began to form. At 10:15 p.m, the situation reached a deadly climax. The crowd surge had become unbearable, with people pressed so tightly together that it was nearly impossible to breathe. Panic spread like wildfire as the reality of the situation set in. As the pressure from behind continued to build, those in the middle began to stumble. The alley, sloping downward, turned into a treacherous funnel. People who lost their footing were quickly swallowed by the crowd, falling to the ground where they were instantly buried under the weight of others. Desperate to escape, some people made their way to the sides of the alley, trying to find any possible refuge from the crush. The lucky few who were near walls or structures attempted to pull themselves and others onto ledges or raised surfaces, hoping to escape the pressure below. The crowd had grown so dense that it became impossible to move. Bodies were piled on top of each other, creating a pile that reached as high as 13 bodies tall in some areas. Those trapped at the bottom were crushed under the weight, unable to breathe. The sheer density of the crowd made it impossible for anyone to move, let alone help those in need. By the time emergency services managed to penetrate the crowd, it was too late for many. Despite the efforts of paramedics and bystanders, 159 people lost their lives that night, and hundreds more were injured. The victims were predominantly young, many in their 20s and 30s, out for a night of fun that turned into their last. The tragedy sent shockwaves through South Korea and the world. The nation was left grieving, asking how such a disaster could have happened. Questions were raised about the lack of crowd control, the absence of police intervention, and the failure to foresee the dangers of such a large gathering in a confined space. In the days following the disaster, investigations were launched to determine what went wrong. Criticism was aimed at the authorities for not taking preventative measures despite the obvious risks. It was revealed that there were just 137 police officers deployed to manage a crowd of over 100,000, a glaring oversight. The South Korean government faced immense pressure to hold those responsible accountable. The police and local officials were scrutinised, with many calling for resignations and criminal charges. The incident also led to a broader discussion about crowd safety and the need for stricter regulations to prevent such tragedies in the future. Following the Itaewon crowd crush, several officials faced legal consequences. Lee In-jae, the former Yongsan Police Station Chief, and Park Hee-young, the mayor of Yongsan District, were both arrested and charged with professional negligence resulting in death. Additionally, other police officers and local government officials were investigated and faced disciplinary actions for their roles in the inadequate response to the disaster. The Itaewon Halloween crowd crush will forever be etched in the memory of those who witnessed it and the families who lost loved ones. It serves as a grim reminder of the dangers that can arise when large crowds gather without proper safety measures in place. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing.